Greetings, creepers. This is Dr. Leech, the Leech Doctor from DailyNightmare.com. And here we are with the second episode in our series about rituals, where I am describing a powerful ritual I've had experience with an idea of eventually uncovering enough material that we can make some clarifying comments on what makes an effective ritual. And if last time was too sweetness and light for you, well, boy howdy, this time is much darker. It will be describing a ritual experience I had of invoking a devil. Not just any devil, don't you know? It is Baphomet, the quintessential goat-headed demon made popular by Eliphas Levi. I will not be actually invoking said creature, and I'm going to be describing a public ritual where conceivably anybody off the street could have come in, so there'll be nothing overly dangerous or salacious. Having said that, this is probably not for you. This would be a great time to unsubscribe, walk away, and pretend you've never heard of this channel. Still here? Cool. Last time I explained more exhaustively my general method, and this time I just want to mention two things. And first thing is, well, it brings us to the sponsor of our show, the Keep a Journal Marketing Board, don't you know? I've kept a journal, a written record of some kind since about the mid-1980s. Yes, I'm very old. And I found it incredibly valuable to refer to these things when making this video. Actually, all of these videos. It's really a remarkable experience. And I found this actually magically and personally valuable to be able to reclaim the firsthand experience I had as I was experiencing these things, and representing that to my current self. I thought I had fully integrated these experiences into my being, and it was just really potent. It's been doing actual energetic work to re-chew through these things. And plus, it's great fun to come across like the first description of someone who later becomes important in your life. Anyway, so keep a journal of some kind. I'm sure I will have a dedicated video about this because it's one of the most potent proto-magical personal development tools you can do. And the second thing is I want to explain a little bit about my general method of why I tell stories. I think stories are the most accurate way to convey truth. People say that we are in a post-truth society now. I'm not so ready to give up on the idea of capital T truth, although I am ready to say that maybe for a while in the previous era, we emphasized a bit too much the objective aspects of truth, the out there parts of truth, and sort of in a way to get under our thumb the unruly subjective ways of being. And stories are always dated and located. It's always the story that I saw. There's always an implied narrator. There's always some kind of a filtering through my personality, through my perspective. That seems to be a closer way of getting at this consensus reality than saying, well, we have access to the objective truth, whether you like it or not. It also puts a fair amount of responsibility on you, the listener, to figure out, well, what your takeaway is from any of the stories I tell. Anyways, so with that out of the way, ready for story time? This story takes place about 10 years ago. Imagine you are in a hotel on the outskirts of Detroit. I am attending a convention. It's a 4-day convention for alternative spirituality. And I've been attending these conferences for about 4 years at this point. And this is a candy shop for the magically curious like myself. My superpower is curiosity. There are presentations from dawn till dusk, and actually past dusk, on witchcraft and shamanism and hypnosis and yoga and all sorts of esoteric personal development. And at this point, I've been keeping a journal for about 30 years. I've been meditating seriously for about a decade, and I've been intensively studying the tarot for about 7 years. This conference takes place in the cold months, the late February, and in the December of the previous year, I had done a 30-day magical challenge with one of the presenters, and these are great opportunities to actually do the work in any field of your life. Actually doing the work is the actual magic ingredient of everything. You can watch YouTube videos till your eyes fall out. You can read books till your fingers bleed. Until you actually are doing something, and doing something on a regular basis, you're not really there. You're just a tourist. So I have done a 30-day challenge with this one of these presenters who I still am in contact with and who I still massively respect. I had gone to his afternoon presentation and introduced myself as someone who had done one of his magical 30 challenges. And he said, "Well, are you going to come to my ritual tonight?" And I was like, I've mentioned before, rituals aren't really my thing. It could be my Protestant Christian upbringing. It could just be that I'm allergic to religion in general. Um, so I've avoided, and I still avoid any religious language for magic. Um, I paraphrase that by saying, I'm a little bit uneasy. It seems like you are invoking a devil. And the presenter was, "Oh yeah, this is one of my most popular rituals. It's one that they've wanted me to do again." He'd done it several years ago, and he was by popular demand, he was redoing this. It was an invocation of Baphomet, the goat-headed uh, hermaphroditic devil of Eliphas Levi. So I asked the presenter, I asked him, uh, "What's the point of that? I mean, aren't devils bad?" And he said, "No, this ritual is for pure magical power. This ritual has made more magicians than any other." So I trusted him. At this point, I'd worked with him daily for a month. I'd been watching his presentations with great delight for about 4 years at that point. So I trusted him, and this was my first public pagan ritual. I tried to convince my friend who was at the conference with me to come along, and he had something else to do that time. The rituals are one of the big draws, I gather, of the conference, and there are certainly a variety of them. All of the ballrooms seem to have one or another ritual happening, and this one was one off in the corner. So I'm waiting in line uh, in the hallway with that. Doesn't every hotel have bizarre carpeting? I mean, it's not just the Overlook Hotel in The Shining. They all have weird carpeting. Um, and this hotel might have been on its due for a remodel, would be a polite way of saying it. The presenter has a cadre of folks who are doing all the necessary and energetic cleansing of the space, preparing it for us. There were probably no open flames. There was probably no incense because it's a public space. They're afraid of, I don't know, burning things down. But on the floor is a sigil. I gather the sigil for Baphomet, made in blue painter's tape. And it's immense. It's like 30 feet by 30 feet. Maybe I'm horrible at estimating that. And we file in. And at this point, there are several dozen people. I'm going to estimate 4 dozen folks, maybe more. And we're instructed to lie down on these tape lines with our head pointing towards the middle and our feet pointing towards the outside. And ideally, we are to be able to touch the person next to us, or so we are making an unbroken circuit, if you will. This was my first ritual, so I wasn't hip to a lot of the ways that they prepared the space. And what I do remember, because I recorded it, some of the presenters helpers were in each corner, doing really free associational calls to the elements. And then I believe that there were at least two other folks adding chaotic incantations on top of this. So it was getting fairly loud in there, which was really, really exciting. I didn't record this part, but my understanding was we were supposed to channel our energy like up from our feet. Ideal if there was someone below you on the sigil, you could be, being a conduit for that energy, and then shoot it out through the top of your head or your point of contact. And we were going to be aiming all this energy at the presenter in the center of the room. What a cool way to be a participant. I was no longer a tourist, let's just say. I was in it. As the energy starts to move, I am overwhelmed with laughter, with just belly laughter, not just like, oh, that was a clever joke. A great release of energy, a great release of tension. It was all so ludicrous and absurd, and all the worries I had about being in a ritual or being or having anything to do with a devil, even a made up devil like Baphomet. I had this great sense of lightness, I guess is the best way to describe it, and levity, which is appropriate for laughter. And I'm so grateful that it was a loud room, a loud ritual. I think there were complaints afterwards. There was a honoring your ancestors ritual happening nearby, and they were like, there was a little too much noise. I was really grateful that it was a loud ritual because I was laughing. I was literally rolling on the floor laughing, long before there was that emoji. And that kept up for the full 45 minutes of the ritual. I think the idea was that we were channeling the energy up, that it would be focused, and then it would come back down to us. And I was just in a different state. Ritual winds down. The presenter is a very responsible leader, so he had folks stationed at every one of the exits, looking people in the eyes and making sure they were back from ritual headspace to being able to drive a car, let's just say. And I don't know how I got out of there, because I was not ready to drive a car, if you know what I'm saying. I was very transported. I know people talk about an awakening, like there's sometimes the metaphor of a third eye opening. And I certainly had a sense that there was a different kind of sensation I was able to take in. I looked at that crazy hotel carpeting, and it was a little vague. I mean, I could still see the pattern, but it was misty. It was not quite fully there, as were the walls. And that's so interesting. And I wander out like into the general large foyer, and I swear there are creatures there that are not in everyday reality. And I'm like, wow, where am I? And a little bit of deflationary. Well, that's Saturday night. That's also the night they have their big masquerade party, don't you know? So these were probably the other attendees of the conference dressed up in their finest shifty costumes. But everyone, any of these little fairies and sprites, were all a little bit loose around the edges. It was like I was tapping into a different kind of sensual perception, except for one person. There was one person nearly in the center of this foyer who was very clear. They were in black and white. They had a very clear outline. They were wearing smart black pants and a crisp vest with one of those poofy shirts, one of those pirate poofy shirts. I was drawn to speak with them, and there was enough of the rational brain who knew that, dude, you're not like, this isn't the best way to make new friends. You're not in the ideal way to network. And eventually it wore off. I mean, eventually the press of everyday sensuous manifold, impressed itself on my senses, and I came back to everyday life. So there are about three things I want to underline about that experience. One of which is my apparent lack of fear for the devil, and this is not universal. My friend had experiences a different kind of religious trauma, let's just say, from his Protestant upbringing, and so he was just not interested in doing any kind of playing around with the devil. My experience is somewhat different, and I'm going to trace it back to seeing The Exorcist at a time when I probably shouldn't have. And I know people refer to that as being so terrifying if you're of a certain age. And my experience was a great sense of calling, a great sense of, oh, yeah, oh, yeah, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. Commanding devils, helping this poor person who's beset by a devil and helping them. I was crestfallen when I discovered that there is, well, not a robust tradition of Protestant exorcists, don't you know? And so that's actually a very interesting to reevaluate. Well, what I do now, I wonder how much I am just being an exorcist. The second aspect I want to underline is the trust for the leader. Uh, Participating in any kind of a ritual requires a fair amount of informed consent. And I'm going to discuss, I'm sure, when I talk about initiations, there are kinds of rituals that it's difficult to be fully informed because you're not going to know what the experience is leaving the ritual before you go into it. But I had trusted this person. And in fact, let me plug his work. Like I said, I'm still a great fan of his work. His name is Andrea Vitamus. He's a chaos magician. This is his, I think it's one published book, published by Llewellyn, 2009. It's still in print, which is amazing because so many esoteric books have a shelf life of mayflies. This is an extremely hands-on, practical book. He's very results-oriented, and that really appealed to me as far as a let's do this thing and see if it works, and if it doesn't, let's modify it till it does. So I trusted him, and if he had done this before, and other folks had not had catastrophic effects with it, I was ready to play along. The third aspect is more difficult to talk about. It is the altered state. There is, if one is going to draw a distinction between a ritual and a ceremony or a performance, I think a ritual, there are no tourists. There are no, everyone's a participant in some sort of a way. When you go into a theater, you are sitting in the audience, and the theater largely is happening up on stage. Different rituals require different kinds of things. But I think that is one of the hallmarks of ritual as opposed to ceremony or performance. There is a required attitude to become fully immersed and fully present in the work that's happening. And again, clearly, what I was experiencing was not what everyone else was experiencing in that particular ritual. So I think there's also the possibility of individual subjectivity, that there is a very personal reaction to the significance I took from this ritual. Yes, it ended up changing the course of the rest of my life. But doesn't everything change the course of the rest of your life? So I'll give a bit of a preview of what we're going to talk about next time. This was the last of our public rituals, of the things that anyone off the street could come into. I think everything else we're going to talk about is a private ritual, or it's for initiates only. You can certainly get a whole different level of effect, and you can also bank on more active participation from the participants. And until then, take care of yourself.